Imagine this. You decide to listen to English every day. No breaks, no excuses. Just you, your ears, and a new language. At first it feels strange. You don't understand much. The sounds are fast. The words disappear too quickly. Your brain tries to catch them, but they slip away. Still, you keep listening. Not because it's easy, but because something deep inside you believes in change, believes in growth. Now, what if I told you that 30 days of listening could change the way your brain works? This is not a dream. This is something real, something powerful, something called the 30-day listening shift. It's not a course. It's not a trick. It's not magic. It's just time, attention, and sound. For 30 days, you give your brain a gift, the gift of hearing English every single day, even when you don't understand everything, even when it feels hard. And something happens, not on day 1, not even on day 5, but slowly, quietly. The brain begins to listen differently. This shift is not about speaking. It's not about grammar. It's not about tests. It's about one thing: understanding, real understanding, without translation, without stress, without fear. Some people call it a click. Others call it a light. It doesn't matter what you call it. What matters is this: when you listen to English for 30 days straight, something inside you starts to change. You stop hearing noise and start hearing meaning. You stop trying to control and start learning to let go. You stop being afraid of mistakes and start getting curious. That is the beginning, not of a lesson, but of a transformation. And now we begin. The first 5 days are not easy, not because you are weak, but because your brain is waking up. It's like entering a room you've never seen before. The light is low. The sounds are new. Everything feels unfamiliar. You listen to English, but your brain doesn't know what to do yet. It tries to translate. It tries to understand. But nothing feels clear. That's normal. That's expected. This is the moment when most people give up, because they think it's not working. But something is working. You just can't see it yet. Each time you listen, your brain hears new sounds, new music, new rhythms. It doesn't understand the meaning, but it starts to recognize the patterns. Think of it like a baby listening to adults. The baby doesn't speak. The baby doesn't understand everything. But the brain is listening, learning, preparing. That's what happens in the first 5 days. You are training your ears. You are training your focus. And without knowing it, you are planting seeds in your mind. No, you can't see the results yet. Not today. Not tomorrow. But the process has started. You may feel confused. You may feel tired. You may ask yourself, is this helping me? Yes, it is. This is the first reaction of the brain. And every time you listen, even when you understand nothing, you're moving forward. Because listening is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up again and again. And if you keep going, something begins to change. From day 6 to day 10, something inside your mind begins to shift. It's small. It's invisible. But it's real, like a soft wind moving through the trees. You don't see it, but you can feel that something has changed. The sounds of English, they no longer feel like noise. They are still fast, but not as sharp. Still confusing, but not as cold. Still unfamiliar, but not impossible. You listen again, and suddenly, you notice a word you heard before. Maybe you don't know what it means. Maybe you're not even sure how it's used. But your brain remembers it. Your ears catch it. And for a brief second, you feel something new. something like hope. That word is not just a word. It's a signal, a sign that your brain is starting to adapt, to accept, to welcome this new sound. It no longer feels like a foreign language. It feels like a code. A code your brain is slowly learning to understand. You begin to notice small things. The way people say hello. The tone when someone is asking a question. The rhythm of a sentence when someone is telling a story. Maybe you hear a phrase that makes you smile, even if you don't understand all the words. Why? Because your brain is beginning to trust the process. The fear is not as strong. The frustration is not as heavy. The pressure is not as loud. And in this softer space, your mind opens a little more each day. You no longer feel the same panic. You don't need to catch every word. You just stay present. You let the words come and go. And you listen. From day 6 to day 10, you don't need to try so hard. You're still listening. But now you're also absorbing, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Your brain is beginning to see patterns. It says, I've heard this before. It starts to connect dots. It stops asking for translation. It starts feeling the meaning. This doesn't mean you understand everything. You don't. And that's okay. Understanding is not the goal right now. Familiarity is. Because once something becomes familiar, your brain is no longer afraid of it. And once fear disappears, learning becomes possible. So you keep listening. You press play again. You listen to the same story, or maybe a different one. It doesn't matter. What matters is that your ears stay open. And slowly, very slowly, English becomes a voice that feels close. Not distant, not strange, but human, warm, present. You begin to notice that listening is no longer just something you do. It becomes something you enjoy. You begin to hear not just words, but emotions. Not just sounds, but energy. From day 6 to day 10, you are not studying. You are not memorizing. You are not testing yourself. You are building something deeper. You are building a relationship with the language. A relationship that doesn't need perfection. A relationship that starts with presence, with patience, with repetition. So keep going. Because every second you listen, your brain is getting stronger. Your ears are getting sharper. Your heart is getting closer. And this quiet progress is the most powerful kind. From day 11 to day 15, something new begins to happen. Quietly, gently, like the first light of morning. You don't just recognize words anymore. You begin to feel connections. You hear a phrase, and somehow your brain understands the idea. Not because you translated it, but because it makes sense. You don't know how it happened. You didn't study that phrase. You didn't write it down. But when you heard it, you just knew what it meant. This is the moment when listening becomes something more. It's no longer just sound. It's meaning. It's emotion. It's story. And your brain, after days of listening, begins to relax. It doesn't fight so much anymore. It starts to flow with the rhythm of the language. You begin to notice the pauses, the music in the voice, the feeling behind the words. And somehow you begin to understand ideas, even when you don't catch every single word. It feels like magic, but it's not magic. It's your brain doing what it was designed to do. Learn through repetition, through sound, through experience. This is when small sentences begin to appear in your mind. Simple thoughts. In English, not perfect, but natural. Maybe you're walking down the street and a sentence just pops into your head. A sentence in English. You didn't force it, you didn't plan it, it just came. And that's how you know. You're no longer translating every thought. You're starting to think in English. In small pieces, in soft moments. You hear something on a podcast or in a story, and it feels familiar. Not just the word, but the feeling of it. You know the tone. You know the intention. You feel connected. That's what happens between day 11 and day 15. You stop being a visitor, and you start becoming part of the conversation. Even if you're silent, even if you never speak, you are inside the world of the language. And this quiet shift is one of the biggest steps forward. Because when the brain starts making these connections, without stress, without pressure, everything else becomes easier. So from day 11 to day 15, listen with your ears, but also with your heart. Because what you're hearing now is no longer just English. It's understanding. From day 16 to day 20, something important begins to happen. The change is no longer invisible. You start to feel it, not just in your ears, but in your mind and in your emotions too. You don't panic when you hear fast English. You don't freeze when you hear something new. You just breathe and listen. Because your brain now knows how to stay calm. It knows this sound. It knows this rhythm. It's not afraid anymore. This is the first real shift. Not a small change, not a guess, but a deep movement inside you. You begin to listen without effort. You begin to understand without thinking. You begin to feel the message. Even before the words are finished. You don't need to translate everything. You don't need to stop the audio. You don't need to replay every sentence 10 times. You simply keep going. You trust the process. And for the first time, you enjoy it. English is no longer a puzzle. It's no longer a mountain you must climb. It becomes something softer, something lighter, something human. You hear a voice speaking English, and it doesn't feel far away. It feels close. You feel connected to it. Not because you know all the rules, but because your brain has accepted the sound. It has made space for it. It has welcomed it. And that's when something beautiful happens. You stop listening like a student and start listening like a real person. You're not just trying to learn. You're trying to understand, to connect, to feel. This is what makes day 16 to day 20 so powerful. You finally stop chasing the language. You let it come to you. You don't control it. You invite it. And when you listen this way, English becomes part of your world, part of your daily life. Not just a goal, but a habit. Not just something to study, but something to live with. You walk through your day and English walks with you. In a song, in a sentence, in a small thought. You're no longer fighting to understand. You're learning to flow with it. From day 16 to day 20, you don't just hear English. You begin to feel it. And once that happens, you are not the same. From day 21 to day 25, something unexpected happens. English no longer feels like something you study. It begins to feel like something you live with, something that belongs in your world, something that fits inside your mind. Not like a guest, but like a friend. You wake up in the morning and your mind doesn't feel the need to translate. You hear a sentence, and the meaning just arrives. Not perfect, not complete, but real. The fear of making mistakes, it's still there, but quieter now. You've listened for so many days that your brain knows what to expect. It doesn't panic. It listens with peace. English becomes a normal part of your day, like water, like music, like a background voice that no longer feels strange. And the more you listen, the more your brain trusts the language. You're not studying. You're not forcing anything. You're not trying to remember every word. You're just listening. And somehow, that's enough. You sit down to eat and you hear English. You walk outside and you hear English. You rest before sleep and you hear English again. It becomes part of your atmosphere, part of your habits, part of your thoughts. And because it feels natural, you stop judging yourself so much. You stop thinking, did I understand that perfectly? And instead you think, I understood the idea. That's enough. You begin to enjoy the language, not because it's perfect, but because it feels human. It feels alive. English starts to sound like something you've always known. Maybe not with your words, but with your feelings. This is what happens between day 21 and day 25. You are no longer chasing English. You are walking with it, quietly, gently, every day. And the more natural it feels, the more confident you become. This is not the end of the journey, but it is a moment when everything starts to make sense. From day 26 to day 29, you begin to feel something new, something quiet but strong, a quiet confidence. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It lives inside you, calm and steady. You hear someone speak English, and your mind doesn't run anymore. It listens. It accepts. It understands just enough. And that's enough. You no longer need every word. You no longer feel lost when you miss a sentence. You simply keep going, like a person walking through fog who now trusts the road beneath their feet. This confidence is not about speaking perfectly. It's not about knowing every rule. It's not about being fast. It's about being calm, being present, being open. You start to realize that your brain knows more than you thought. It can understand the meaning behind the words. It can feel the mood of a sentence. It can read the silence between sounds. Sometimes you hear something and you understand it instantly. You don't know how. You didn't try. You just knew. Other times you miss a few words, but you still get the message. And that's when you know you've grown. Because listening is not about catching everything. It's about catching enough. Enough to understand. Enough to feel. Enough to keep going. And that's what makes these days so special. From day 26 to day 29, you begin to trust yourself. You don't need permission. You don't need a teacher to say, you're ready. You feel it inside. That quiet voice that says, I can do this, maybe not perfectly, but I can do it. And that belief, that simple belief, is powerful. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it changes everything. Because once you believe, you keep going. You don't stop. You don't quit. You listen again. You enjoy it. You grow with it. And slowly, without pressure, English becomes not just a language, but a part of who you are. Day 30 arrives, not with noise, not with fireworks, but with something softer, something deeper, something real. You press play again, like you've done for the past 29 days. But this time, it feels different. Not because the words are new, but because you are new. You hear the same voice, the same rhythm, the same language. But your brain listens differently now. Calmer, clearer, stronger. You don't need to pause as often. You don't feel lost in every sentence. You follow the story. You understand the idea. You feel the message. You remember how it felt on day one, the confusion, the pressure, the doubt. And now, You sit here on day 30, and something inside you has changed. You didn't memorize 100 words. You didn't take a test. You didn't learn every rule. But you listened. Every day. Without giving up. And that changed everything. You don't speak more fluently yet. You don't understand everything. But you have something more powerful. A brain that is now trained to listen. You hear in English. You think in short English ideas. You feel comfortable in silence. You are not afraid of fast conversations. You don't panic when someone says something unexpected. You are not perfect. You are prepared. And that's the transformation. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it is real. It is deep. And it is yours. Day 30 is not the end of your learning. It's the beginning of something new. A new way of thinking, a new way of hearing, a new way of learning that does not need pressure. Only time, trust, and repetition. You listened for 30 days. You showed up. And because of that, you changed. Not just your English, but your mindset, your patience, your discipline. This is the transformation moment. The day when English no longer feels impossible. The day when you look back and think, I did it. Welcome to day 30. You've made it. After 30 days of listening to English every single day, something inside you begins to feel different. Not in a loud or obvious way, but in a quiet and powerful one. You may not notice it in a single moment. You may not wake up and say, now I understand everything. But if you stop and look back, you'll see just how far you've come. In the beginning, English felt like noise. Too fast, too unclear, too much. You tried to catch every word. You tried to make sense of every sentence. You got frustrated. You wanted to give up. But you didn't. You stayed. You listened. Even when it was hard. Even when it felt like nothing was working. And now, 30 days later, you're still here, still listening, still growing. And something has changed. You no longer feel lost in every sentence. You no longer pause the audio every 10 seconds. You no longer think, I can't do this. Instead, you think, I understand more than I did before. You think, this doesn't feel impossible anymore. And that's the real change. Because real learning doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, word by word, thought by thought, minute by minute. Over these 30 days, your ears have become stronger. They now recognize the sounds of English. They no longer panic at fast speech. They follow the rhythm. They follow the feeling. Your brain, too, has changed. It no longer asks for translation every second. It has learned to wait, to listen, to let the meaning arrive naturally. You may still miss words. You may still feel unsure sometimes. But you're no longer afraid of that feeling. Because now you know that understanding doesn't mean knowing everything. It means knowing enough to keep going. You've also changed emotionally. In the past, you may have judged yourself. You thought you were too slow, too confused, too far behind. But now, you understand something deeper. Language learning is not a race. It's a relationship. And you've just spent 30 days building that relationship with English. You've created a habit. You've created a new rhythm in your day. You've trained your brain to show up, to focus, to stay present, even when it's tired, even when it's distracted, even when it's not perfect. And that is something most people never do. Many people want fast results. They want shortcuts. They give up when it's hard. But you didn't. You showed up again and again. You trusted the process even when you couldn't see the results. And now the results are beginning to show. Maybe not in the form of perfect grammar, maybe not in the form of long conversations, but in something much more powerful. You are not afraid of English anymore. You hear it, and you stay calm. You listen, and you follow the meaning. You hear a word you know, and it feels like a small light turning on in your brain. That light didn't come from a textbook. It came from experience, from listening, from consistency. And the truth is, this change is only the beginning. After 30 days, you are now in a better position to keep growing because your brain has accepted the sound of English, because your mind has developed the patience to sit with confusion, because your heart has started to believe. I can do this. You may still be quiet. You may not speak much, but inside you something strong is growing. Confidence, clarity, courage. The courage to listen, even when you don't understand. The courage to keep going, even when it feels slow. The courage to learn the way children do, with curiosity, with openness, with time. And maybe, just maybe, you've already had a moment, a small one, where you understood something without trying, where the words felt natural, where your brain stopped thinking and simply knew. That's not an accident. That's the result of your effort. That's the result of 30 days of listening. And it's only going to grow from here. Because now you know how to keep going. You've built the habit, you've seen the progress, and you've felt the shift. So what changes after 30 days? Everything. Not all at once. Not in big dramatic ways. But in small, powerful steps. Your ears are trained. Your brain is open. Your fear is smaller. Your trust is stronger. And your journey, your real journey with English, has now begun. You've made it to the end of this journey. 30 days of listening. 30 days of showing up. 30 days of growing quietly, one word at a time. And maybe right now you still don't understand everything. Maybe your brain still wants to translate, still wants to go back to the old way of thinking. And that's okay. That's normal. That's part of the process. Because thinking in English doesn't happen in one day. It doesn't even happen in 30. It's not a switch you turn on. It's a slow change, a quiet shift, a gentle transformation. It starts with a single thought, then a second, then a full sentence, then a moment. A small, powerful moment when you hear something in English and you understand it. Not because you translated, not because you memorized, but because it simply made sense. And that moment, no matter how small, is the beginning of something big. For so long, you may have believed that you had to translate everything, that you had to know every word, that you had to speak perfectly. But language doesn't work that way. It's not about control. It's about connection. It's about being open, being patient, being human. You don't learn a language by force. You grow into it. You let it in, bit by bit, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. And every time you listen, without pressure, without fear, without expectations, you are becoming stronger. You are not just learning English. You are learning how to stay consistent, how to be kind to yourself, how to trust your process. So if you've made it this far, keep going. Don't stop now. Don't go back to silence. Stay inside the sound. Stay close to the language. Let it live around you. Listen again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Even if it's just 5 minutes, even if it's just one story. Because every time you show up, you move forward. This is not the end. This is a new beginning. You've built something real, something that will stay with you. A habit, a rhythm, a quiet power. Keep listening, keep learning, keep growing, because the more you listen, the more you understand. And the more you understand, the closer you are to fluency. It all begins with listening, and you've already started.